Hi everyone, Nicole Spohr here today with another Stamptimber 2021 video. Today we are doing a fall card showcase. So yesterday's video showed you some ideas for Halloween cards. Today it's all going to be fall. So lots of fall colors, fall leaves, just beautiful rich tones. We're going to start with this leaves stencil design. I think this is going to be a very popular product for Stamptimber. It is a two-piece stencil. It comes with two 6x6 stencils. I have a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch panel background that we are going to stencil these leaves on. I picked some of my favorite rich colors of Simon Says Stamp ink and the mini blending brushes from Simon to stencil these leaves. We're starting with Schoolhouse Red. Now I am using a little post-it tape, but this is the only place I used it. I decided that a little overlap, if it happened, was going to be fine. These mini blending brushes honestly kind of keep most of that from happening. Then I did take some dark chocolate ink and I'm just deepening and darkening some of the edges of the leaves to give it a little bit more of a realistic look. Stamping, yes, but stenciling on colored cardstock, wow, I cannot talk, I'm sorry, on colored cardstock is one of my favorite things. I love how it looks. I love how the inks look completely different on a colored cardstock. You get the best results the lighter the cardstock you use. So craft is going to be amazing for all kinds of fall or even holiday type of cards. You get some really beautiful results. I'm using a little bit heavier hand with my ink, and I guess I did use my stencil or my little mask, I guess, in one other area. I thought I only used it once, just where I didn't want a ton of overlap. The other colors I'm using from the Schoolhouse Red are Sunshine, Catkin, Evergreen, and Burnt Orange. Now I'm going to go ahead and apply the base color of all of my leaves, and then I'm going to come back with the dark chocolate and I will deepen and darken all of the areas on all of the leaves. I did the first one to kind of make sure I liked how that looked, and from there we will definitely add more. Trying to decide what color to do next. We're going to do another evergreen branch, and I think we finish with Catkin down here. Now the great thing about this two-piece stencil is the second stencil is the veining and stems for the leaves, meaning that you're able to get these beautiful dimensional leaves so easily. I know it looks really messy right here with the stencil, but wait till I remove it. It is amazing. Now I got a little heavy-handed with the dark chocolate ink, so what I'm going to do is take my other ink colors like Sunshine and my yellow blending brush, Catkin in the blending brush, and blend out those areas where I just was way too heavy-handed with dark chocolate. And then I'm adding the rest of that color to my leaves. And when I peel this away, look at those beautiful leaves. I just love them. Okay, next we have the stems and veining stencil. I'm going to just use dark chocolate for this and add the color. I'm using a pretty heavy hand going over that inking before. I want it to show up really well. When I peel this away, gorgeous leaves. Look how pretty those are. I think this stencil is going to be so popular. It's really great. And the great thing about stencils is I missed an area, so I was able to line up that first stencil and stencil those little dots that I missed. Now you could leave the wreath as is, but I'm going to take the Painted Leaves stamp set and we're going to go ahead and stamp these on craft cardstock as well. I love that the design of this stamp set mimics and is the same as the stencil, so they work seamlessly together, and it's going to allow me to create some dimensional leaves in my leaves wreath. I am stamping again on craft cardstock. I want the leaves to look the same, so I stamped with, in this case, burnt orange first, inked up the edges of the leaf with dark chocolate, and then I inked those. I even went back with burnt orange and added another layer. Now these are two-tone stamps, not two-tone, two-step stamps. And I was afraid I was not going to get the stem exactly where it goes, so I went ahead and die cut my leaf before adding the veining and the stem. I'm going to show you how I get perfect stamping. So I die cut it, I replaced it back in the cardstock, put it back in my MISTI, lined up that stem, and I am simply going to stamp that stem. I'm going to repeat this for the other 3 leaves that I'm going to do. What happens is I get perfect placement. I was so happy with this, and I was glad that I took that little extra step. We're going to be able to pop these up in our wreath. It adds more color, more leaves, makes it super full, and I love it. Now, if you stamped those leaves on white cardstock instead of craft, it's going to be glaringly obvious and really not flow with the whole design. So that's one of the reasons I chose to do craft cardstock here. That leaf did not stamp well the first time, so I am just going to ink that up again. I moved it and inked it up, adding the dark chocolate, adding more Schoolhouse Red, die cutting, and then stamping the veining for this guy. I think the 4 colors of leaves I used for these leaves are Burnt Orange was first, Schoolhouse Red, we're going to do Catkin next, and I believe Sunshine was the last one, if I'm not mistaken. I guess we'll see here in a minute. There is the veining and the stem for this one. The stamp set can be used completely by itself. You do not have to use it with the stencil, just like the stencil can be used without the stamp and die combo. I just love that they are made to work together if you want to. Yes, that is a little Sunshine, inked up the edges with dark chocolate. Very fast cleaning with the sped up video. And then we're going to, of course, add the stem and veins for the leaves, but we need to die cut it first. And I just like that I was able to do a one and done this way and not have to guess about lining up. Because if you're slightly wrong, you run the risk of trimming or stamping off of where you're going to die cut that stem. I've done that in the past with other stamp sets, so I thought this would work great. So there are our leaves. I've also die cut the Thankful for You sentiment, another brand new die cut greeting for Stamptember 2021. I die cut the background for Thankful for You from dark chocolate cardstock. I also went ahead and attached one of those individual leaves from Painted Leaves right to my wreath. And then I am going to add glue to the back of the Thankful sentiment, which layers right on top of Thankful for You. I've die cut this from gold metallic cardstock, and it goes right on top. Now you'll notice that for the For You part, I did not pop out the letters for that part of the sentiment, and I did that on purpose. They didn't pop out. They're pretty small. And so you would have to kind of poke them out with a poking tool or tweezers. And so I left them in place. And that is because we're actually going to layer on top these little letters. I die cut the sentiment again from 4 shades of cardstock, kind of mimicking the colors I used in the fall leaves. And we're going to do a different color for each of those. While I'm doing this, I'm also going to find where I want to put my extra leaves, and I'm popping up the rest of them with foam adhesive for a little added dimension. If it hangs off the edge a little bit, that is fine. We can trim that away when we're all done. I'm using some tweezers to easily grab each of these letters and pop them in place. And I really like how by layering them on top, it gives them a little bit more dimension. You could also pop out the dark chocolate or whatever color you use for that background and inlay these instead of layering on top. Now you'll notice that these are quite a bit brighter than the rest of my design. I have a fun little tip for you here in a minute to help mute that and really make it all flow together perfectly. We're going to add our leaves with the little foam adhesive. We have a sentiment strip from the Reverse All the Thanks sentiment strips. They're just like any Simon release. The sentiment strips come in the white and then the reverse, which is the black. If you want, you could always foil these in your Minc machine with foil because they are printed on laser paper. And I did snip away the stem of that leaf so that I was able to place this a little bit easier because I want to make sure the foam adhesive is only where it doesn't overlap a leaf. Oh, it looks so pretty. Now, I felt like I lost some of the little dots from the stenciling. There is little dots also in the stamp set, so I simply took an acrylic block, I took my inks, and I'm going to stamp those. And if they don't stamp perfect, I'm just going to go back over them. I was living on the edge, guys. I don't do that very often. I usually only do it with my MISTI, but it worked out great. So the final thing I'm going to do is take some Nuvo Crystal Drops in Honey Gold, and I'm going to apply some of this to some of the dots. It's going to dry clear with gold glitter. And while I had this out, I thought, you know what, let's just apply it to the letters for you. It's going to dry clear, you're still going to see the color underneath, but the gold glitter is going to mute it enough that I think it flows with the design a lot better. And that is it for this card. I placed this on a white side fold card base and I'm all finished. For our next card, we have this beautiful fall leaves background with the chunky thankful sentiment. The background is the star of the show on this card. This is the peel apart fall leaves. It's peel apart because you can peel this background apart and only use portions of it if you want to. Now, I love the whole thing so much that I opted to go ahead, leave it together and stamp it as one big panel. I stamped the whole thing on watercolor cardstock using clear embossing ink and heat embossing with Simon Says Stamp Antique Gold Embossing Powder. This embossing powder is so beautiful. It is my favorite gold. I think it's so amazing, and we're going to do some faux watercoloring. I call it faux, it's watercoloring because I'm not super confident yet. My friend Callie Person is helping getting me started with watercolor. She was generous enough to share some of her Daniel Smith watercolors with me, so I have big plans to start watercoloring a bit and see how I do. But for today, I am watercoloring with Distress inks. These are amazing, quick, easy. So many of us already have Distress ink, and by watercoloring in an embossed area, you kind of contain the water, and it's very, very forgiving. Like, I used way too much water right here, but it actually ended up being okay. I am using Rusty Hinge, that's the color I'm using right now, Crackling Campfire, Fossilized Amber, Aged Mahogany, Forest Moss, and Ground Espresso. Those are the 6 colors of Distress ink I am using. You can see I created my own little paint palette on my Tim Holtz glass mat, and I did try to color multiple leaves with one color before moving on to the next color, just so I didn't have to clean my paintbrush in between each individual leaf. I would lay down the most of the color, and then I would grab a little bit more concentrated color and drop that in to certain areas of the leaf so that it has all of that great, beautiful detail. I did only use one color per leaf, meaning I didn't mix any of the distress colors for this project, and I thought it worked really, really well. So far I've only used Rusty Hinge and Crackling Campfire. As I continue to add more of the colors, you'll see how beautiful this background is. I really love this background stamp. I think this is probably going to be a very popular product as well, just because it is so, so good. This is Aged Mahogany, which is going to be our deep burgundy red color. So pretty, and we're just going to skip around. I did stamp the whole background, so this is pretty much a 6x6, and I'm going to be able to trim this down so I can kind of pick and choose where exactly I would like to see the images. So I can kind of pick the part of the background, I guess, that I want, or you could always trim it so that you would end up with maybe like a little thin strip that you could use on an extra card if you do what I do, or you could simply stamp the size of the background that you want and color that in. Whatever works best for you. This is a little fossilized amber, so the great yellow color making an appearance. I also did the forest moss with the beautiful green. And just keep adding all of this gorgeous color. Here's some Ground Espresso. The brown really just kind of ties it all together, is a fantastic neutral. I really love all of these colors and how well they work together. When I am done coloring in the entire background, I am going to let this completely dry. And then I am going to splatter it with a little Crackling Campfire Distress paint, because I tend to like everything with a little distressing. You'll notice that a lot here, this card and the next one, that I added quite a bit of distressing to them. If your little watercolor palette gets too wet and you need a little bit more paint, just go ahead and press your ink pad down and get a little bit more color. I had to do that a few times as needed. I noticed I ran out of fossilized amber and aged mahogany pretty quick. So now that we have our color down, we can go ahead, let this dry. While it was drying, I did die cut my sentiments for my card. That is the Chunky Thankful. And I die cut it a few times because we're going to die cut it from some great Lawn Fawn textured cardstock. It's the great little dotted cardstock, so it's really, really fun. I noticed when I used it, I have not used it very much, and it was a great opportunity to use it. I think I kind of forgot about it, which kind of irritates me because it's so wonderful. This is the Crackling Campfire Distress Paint. I added a little water to help it spread a little easier, and I'm using a small paintbrush, and I have it in a box to help protect my surface, and I'm just tapping it all over, getting that splatter. I'm trying to be careful because it tends to be a little messy. I usually kind of shut the box, but I wanted to be able to show you this, and I love how the splatters end up. There is a spot you can see I accidentally bumped the paintbrush against a leaf. Luckily, I can hide that with my die cuts. So here is my trimmed down background. It's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. We have our Chunky Thankful sentiment. This is a new die from Kathy Zielski. We die cut the outline from gold metallic Lawn Fawn cardstock. It is my go-to favorite. That's the same cardstock I used for Thankful on the last card. I am going to keep using acrylic blocks to help hold things down and hold it flat while I am using liquid glue. And then I used 4 shades of this Lawn Fawn cardstock. I die cut Thankful from that, and I am replacing the letters so that the colors of the cardstock tie in to the beauty of our watercolored leaves. And then I'll just repeat that. We will also be adding an All the Thanks sentiment strip here. I did not want to use black. I kind of thought black might detract away from the beauty of the background. So we'll be using a white one. And I'll pop that up with foam adhesive right underneath Thankful. And then, of course, we're going to be finishing our card with some little heart embellishments because you guys know how much I love those. We're going to use some little coffee bean Trinity hearts. And also don't forget to replace the little gold for the inside of the letter A in Thankful. I did 2 little hearts between the N and the K, one down below the sentiment strip. We're going to attach the entire panel to a white side fold card base. This is a great opportunity to remind you that Simon Says Stamp sells card bases out of Neenah Heavyweight cardstock. We've got side fold, top fold in A2 size, slimline, and mini slimline. I love them because they make the creation of cards quick and easy. I love this next card. I was having a very hard time with this brand new Lined Leaves stamp set because I kept trying to use deeper, darker colors. And I took a break. I hung out with my dog. We laid down for a few minutes, and I came back with this idea to do brighter colors. So you're going to notice that while I still use Sunshine ink, I'm going to use some brighter colors for my leaves. I stamped all but one, I think, of the leaves from the Lined Leaves stamp set on smooth white cardstock with clear embossing ink. I'm heat embossing with white embossing powder, and we're going to do embossed resist. So we are going to take our mini ink blending tools from Simon Says Stamp and 4 shades of ink and add color to these leaves. First up, we've got some orange slush. Sorry, that was hard to say. And then we're going to do a little sunshine, and you can see those leaves just pop out. Next, we're going to do a little green leaf, which is a much brighter green, but it's still fall. I love it. And then Hot Lips, which is a little bit brighter red than Schoolhouse, but still, again, nice fall colors, and it's just a very bright, very fresh look. Now, I repeated some of these colors. We're going to end up with 2 green leaves, 2 orange, and 2 yellow with only 1 red. Now, this is a really fun idea, but I was inspired by a quilt pattern. The layout of the blocks in the quilt is how I'm going to lay out my leaves on my card, which I'll show you here in a minute. I also went with one of my go-to favorite background ideas. I've done this before on another card. I think it's been about a year ago. But I love, love, love the wood planks from Simon Says Stamp. Look how beautiful those leaves are. Aren't they gorgeous, you guys? So the wood planks is a fantastic background stamp. It's a fantastic basic. I'm taking a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch panel of smooth white cardstock. I am stamping it with dark chocolate ink. And while the texture is amazing, it doesn't look like much right now. Next, we're going to take khaki ink and we are going to ink the entire panel right over the dark chocolate stamping with our khaki ink. It's starting to look better, right? But just wait. We're going to go back to our dark chocolate ink and add that around the edges of our panel, and instantly you can see the difference. This is my favorite way to create my own wood grain patterned paper backgrounds with this stamp. It is a really, really beautiful one. Instantly, we have a gorgeous background. Off camera, I did splatter it with some white just because I like my distressing. I let that dry, and now I'm going to pop up my leaves with foam adhesive. We're going to start with our red maple leaf here in the middle because we're going to do 3 leaves in the center and 2 on each side. This is, like I said, inspired by a quilt pattern. I know there's nothing quilting about this, but a pattern that I'm currently working on, the layout of the blocks is like this, where it kind of goes 2, 3, 2, 3, 2 with a flower layout of the blocks. And I thought it was really clever. And so I opted to do that with these leaves. And I ended up loving the result. I could see doing this with Christmas ornaments, all kinds of things. So just a really fun idea. And I'm going to do something completely different with this because I'm going to use a super teeny tiny sentiment. I love the teeny tiny sentiments in this set. And I was looking for a teeny tiny tag. And in my stash, I have the Lawn Fawn Scalloped Circle gift tag die set. This is the teeny tiny tag from that. I die cut it from craft cardstock. I inked up the edge to distress them a bit with dark chocolate ink. And then we're going to stamp the tag with Autumn Greetings from the Lined Leaves stamp set using clear embossing ink and heat embossing with white embossing powder. Now, I'm going to be transparent here. I did not leave it in the video because I don't want to keep you here too long. I had the worst time stamping this sentiment. I should not have used an acrylic block. I should have used my Misti. I actually threw away like 5 of these tags. I was getting so mad. And I finally got smart and got my Misti out. But it looks amazing. I love it. In the die set, you also get the whole reinforcer. I'm only going to put it on the front because you aren't going to see the back of this particular tag. And that finishes the tag beautifully. We're going to faux tie it to one of the leaves. I am going to put some thin hemp string through this and kind of tie it to the leaf, but we're going to secure it with liquid glue and also a foam adhesive square. Look how cute that is. Isn't that just beautiful? So I think it's going to look best kind of tied over here off to the side. We're going to add some little coffee bean heart embellishments because I have to have a heart somewhere on everything, it feels like. And I don't have a source for this hemp twine because I know I'm going to get asked. I have had this for like 10 or 12 years. I've had it forever. Embroidery, or not embroidery, crochet thread would be something similar. Check out your favorite hobby and craft stores for the hemp string they might have that's nice and thin. That's the thing I love about this so much is how thin it is. And I wish I had more because I have almost run out. I've had this little spool for years and years. In fact, I used to have it in white and I long since used all of that. Okay, I got that tied and you can see it won't stay there without a little bit of help, but that's okay. We just want it to kind of be appearance sake. So we will pop that up in the center, place a foam adhesive square where the leaves aren't, So kind of right there. We're going to push that down, and then I like to kind of pull the ends of the tag up a little bit to give it a little bit more texture. When we have our bow just like we want it, let's take a little liquid adhesive, and I guess I'm going to do my little hearts first. I did one here on this yellow leaf. We're going to do the other two down here on the other yellow leaf. And then I did kind of lift this up with my tweezers and just put a little dab of glue underneath. Anything I can do to kind of keep this from coming apart. I did a little dab of glue on the center of the bow as well. And that is perfect. I love this card. I think the bright colors are so pretty, and I hope you guys love this stamp set. It is just a more modern approach to the leaves. I love that there's so many different options. I hope that I think that there's a little something for everyone. This release is huge. I've only touched on a portion of the products in the release. I did a lot of cards. I did the Halloween cards yesterday, the fall cards here. I have Christmas cards coming. I don't have a date for that yet, but I've done them. And my bin of unused product is still huge, and I feel like I've used so much new. Next up, we have a card that isn't necessarily fall. I think this could be any time, but it definitely has fall vibes. This is the Etched Layered Daisy Stem. It is gorgeous. It's a 3-piece die, so there's 2 pieces for the flower, and then there is the stem. I'm going to die cut this 3 times and color each of these exactly the same with my Copic markers. So I'm using lots of shades of yellow here for the center. I want the center of the flower to be deep and dark, and then I want the petals to be nice and light. I'm just kind of pulling from the center with my markers. And I will repeat this 3 times to build my flowers. I did not keep this in the video, but the stems, I'm going to bundle these together. And because I'm bundling 3 flowers and 3 stems together, the stems each have 2 leaves. And I felt like that was a little bit too many leaves to kind of bundle them. I'm going to tie them up with some twine and add one of those little tags that I used for the last card to this card as well. And so I'm going to color the stems, but I am going to trim a leaf or 2 off a couple of those so they just lay together nicer. So let's make sure we add some shading to the back side of our little flower before we assemble it. I'm going to put glue right there in the center, and then I'm going to just glue them in the center and leave the petals all loose so they naturally have a little bit more of that movement and dimension. A little bit of glue. They perfectly match together. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Here is the stem. It also has such great design. They're called etched because they have all of the beautiful detail in the die cut. So I'm going to go with my darkest color first, which is G99. Then I'm going to go with G94 and then G48. I'll probably go back with G99, maybe even G94 to add some detail if I blend a little bit too much, which I did, so that is what I'm going to do. The tips of the leaves are going to be mostly where you're going to see that G43. Just kind of blending it all out. And I really felt like I over blended, so that's why we're going to go back, kind of follow the veining, the etching on the die cut, and just add some nice little flicking or feathering motions there, and it looks a lot more natural. Love this. So, so pretty. So there is what our flower looks like. Now there is a new layering stencil collection. It is awesome. It comes with 4 stencils. I did not use I didn't use one of them. So I'll show you, I'm going to use kind of more of the individual pieces. So this one I am going to stencil with Lawn Fawn Butter ink and the Simon Says Stamp blending brushes. This is going to be my lightest color. I stenciled this guy. This is another thing that I stenciled multiple times trying to find a color combination that I loved, and I just wasn't hitting it. There was really nothing wrong with any of the things I did. They just didn't go with my card with the daisy as much as I would have liked. And when I hit this and did shades of yellow, it was perfect. So butter was my first color. We're going to take the more chevron looking stencil next. And I'm so sorry, my head's in the way. I wanted to get that lined up perfectly because you can kind of see through your stencil. We're going to ink up with Duckling next. This is kind of my mid-tone yellow color. Again, we're using the Simon Says Stamp blending brushes. I love that the brushes are beautiful colors. They come in large and small. They are just amazing. And I'm so sorry, I zoomed in too close. Hopefully I moved that up a little bit. There we go. And as these dye inks that we're stenciling with absorb and dry, they will smooth out, and you're going to end up with a much smoother looking background. It won't be quite so blotchy, which you'll see here in a minute. Finally, we're going to finish with this small little diamond shape. We did the large one first, then the chevron, and now this one's going to fill in the rest of the other little diamond or square. This is Sunshine ink. So this is the ink I've used quite a bit for the yellow leaves. It's going to be my darkest color. I'm using quite a bit heavier hand, and we're just going to go over the entire thing. And I know it looks terrible and messy, but when I peel this away, you end up with a gorgeous background. I think this will be a very popular item in the release as well. And look at that. Isn't that beautiful? This is a 4 by 5 1/4 background. Now, I did foil the Love hot foil plate from the Stamptember release on this background. I think I used too many shims. I had bad overfoiling, but I did not want to ruin this background that I stenciled. So I'm going to take a sand eraser and we're going to just erase away any of that overfoiling, and we're left with a beautiful sentiment. I didn't share the foiling steps in this video. If you guys want to see me use the foil plates from the Stamptember release and kind of do a foiling overview, please let me know in the comments. I would love to know and love to do that video for you if you want to see it. So I tied my little daisies together. I added a With Gratitude little tag. That sentiment is from the Lined Leaves. I added an All the Thanks sentiment strip down below. You can see that I did trim off, you can't even really notice, but I did trim off a couple of the leaves, which helps that go together a little bit better. Right there to the right of our sentiments, and then we're finishing with a scattering of our little Trinity Stamps coffee bean hearts because they are my favorite for my fall themed cards. We're going to do a little one for each center of the daisy flowers as well. We're going to place the whole thing on a white top fold card base, which ties in nicely to the white from the stenciling as well as our sentiment strip. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for this fall card showcase featuring Stamptember 2021 release products. The supplies I used to create my cards are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here is another video featuring Simon Says Stamp Stamptember products that you might be interested in. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell to never miss a new card making video. Thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll see you next time.